Welcome to the Focused Fundraiser, where we discuss how to focus on the right fundraising practices that are going to move the needle today, because we believe that doing more shouldn't be the goal. Doing what matters most should be the goal. And so this podcast is all about how do we focus in on those things that matter most and know what they are and tackle them together. So today I am joined by Rachel Bearbower, founder of the nonprofit automation agency. Rachel has sat in the ED seat in the past. She has deep knowledge in automation and workflows. So we're going to talk about that a lot today. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob. Thank you. It's great. It's great to be here. And hello,
Awesome.
everyone else.
Yeah. This is live now, and then we'll throw it on YouTube afterwards. Let's dive into a little bit of your history. Share a little bit of your background, how you got into the nonprofit sector, what had led you to become a fundraiser, and then a few 7 years ago, I believe, move into the consultancy role. Tell me a little bit about your past.
Oh my God. I mean, everything about my experience in nonprofit is by accident. I was in finance. I moved back to my hometown. I moved back across the country and I was like, can't be that hard to start a nonprofit. If that is not like the overconfidence of a 20 or mid 20s, it is hard. But yeah, I got into, I kept following my gut, which, I think works sometimes, but I just kept doing what I believed in. And, with practice, I was relentless. That is a word that I think a lot of people will describe me as, is just relentless. Like once I'm focused on something. And I think that, when I was running my organization, I had my eye on the prize of like what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish. And so I just kept, the more I did the work and learned and, obviously I got better. I learned how to actually fundraise. Um, I actually worked at a real nonprofit, that helped me kind of understand like how things work traditionally so that I could kind of figure out what my style was. And I put in the reps, over and over and over again, which I think is something that you just have to do. The more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah. So you jumped into a what you call a real nonprofit, even though yours was real, but maybe just wasn't as successful or didn't last. But
Yeah.
the real nonprofit, learned fundraising. What led you into the starting an agency around automation?
Yeah, I mean, it started, I should say my nonprofit is very much real. It's very much still going. It's very much still successful. It's amazing. And then I worked in kind of the animal welfare, uh, animal rescue. And then, yeah, so then I ran my nonprofit for several years, 8 years. And then I was like, I was just ready for, for just a lot. It was time to move on. And I don't know, you kind of teach what you know, right? So I I knew how to build systems. I knew how to be an executive director, and I, it's. I think my business and my consulting has evolved over the last 8 years, and I feel like automation is a place that can, it's part system building, but it's also helping relieve some of just that like pressure on organizations. There's so much that you can do, that you can automate things so that you can scale and you can grow in a way that, allows you to, you can automate all the things that like are just like admin tasks and things like that can be automated so that you can focus on the things that can't be, which is building relationships and, being your unique self. So
I love that.
that's that's how I landed here.
Well, let's dive into automation then. A question I've got for you is the role of automation. Let's talk about that. So, how do you see technology playing a role in the fundraising and the stewardship for a nonprofit and for fundraisers? How should fundraisers be thinking about automation?
I mean, Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's a question that we're, like, constantly trying to ask because I think that, I don't know, traditionally, some of the automation, like, that we've seen can feel very, like, stale and impersonal and, uh, cold, and that's not what I'm doing here. My goal is to make automation feel very personal, very, um, in line with what, you're trying to accomplish, but at the same time, like, automation isn't there to, like, replace you. It's to free up your time. So instead of uploading and downloading spreadsheets or, you need to send like an email to, an individual email to 50 donors, well, you can automate that and save a ton of time and not accidentally, you we've all like pasted emails and like forgot to change like the first name or something and sent it off to a donor and they're just like, ah. But if you, if you use automation, like you can do that within 2 minutes instead of it being 3 hours of your day. Um, but there's a huge role for automation to just to to make fundraising easier and to help you be more consistent. I think that we think of automation to maybe like, I don't know, help us do our like do more or whatever, but like really it helps us be consistent. I actually just had a conversation with an executive director who she's a mom of a toddler. She runs an organization. Just there's a lot on her plate, and she's just like, oh, I'm feeling that, and I can't be, as present with donors as I want to be, and that's a big place that automation can step in and help be consistent, like setting up consistent emails through, an automated workflow so that because like that's trust, donor trust, showing up consistently, that's trust, right? So, yeah, automation can play a huge role in our work.
I think consistency is such a great word to use because we talk a lot about like saving time, doing more with less, all of that. But the consistency piece of it's can serve up notifications for you to follow up at the right time with the right person versus you scraping the data and missing a birthday or gift anniversary. It can
Or like
do,
that
yeah,
mental load.
yeah.
Let's reduce the mental load. You already have so much on your plate, like every fundraiser, right? Like, let's get rid of that. I'll just do it for you.
Is there a common misconception around automation that you often see when you start working with nonprofits to help them with their workflows?
Probably that it's impersonal.
Okay.
It doesn't in or it's cold or it's spammy. It doesn't have to be. And we set up we set up a lot of workflows and automations for organizations. And one of my favorite things is we kind of when we turn everything on, there's like this moment where like these emails start going out and like people, start like we just had a donor come back after 10 years, gave a gift.
That's
Amazing.
awesome. Yeah.
I had another organization, I emailed them. We sent out 2 emails, or sorry, we sent out 1 email. In the first email, they got 6 new recurring donors. And I messaged the executive director and I was like, is this normal? Like, he's like, "This is not normal. This is amazing." And it was because we had set up these automated processes that were working.
Yeah. And I would assume that you would agree with this that automation is a key component, but it is not like you still have to have the right messaging and you still have to have the right asks to put into those automations and segment correctly. So you're making the ask to the right donor journey, all of that.
Yes. In the work that I do through or we do through the agency, that is a really big part of it because you shouldn't be sending every single email to every single person. Like that does make it feel impersonal. When somebody gets an email that just doesn't feel like, thanks them for a gift that they didn't give. Like, yeah, that's not that's not how automations should work. Or it it does give it a bad name, but there's a lot of ways that you can make it feel very very personal, and and because of the tech, we can get kind of into the different segments and a little more granular so that it can be very hyper uh, personalized.
So something that comes to mind for me is many nonprofits use a patchwork of tools. They've got an email system over here. They've got their CRM system over here. They've got their fundraising platform over here. Their QuickBooks, all of that, and oftentimes they don't talk to each other. When you walk into an organization with a fragmented tech stack, what's a first step that you take to bring order? Or if somebody's listening that has a fragmented tech stack, what would you recommend the first step that they take?
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot, and that's like one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time. Uh, so with your tech, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to think about it, but the way that I think about it is like start with like your CRM, which is your source of truth, right? Making sure that your CRM has all the information that's needed. And then you can pick tools that either integrate natively, meaning like you don't have to like that they talk to each other, or that integrate via something like Zapier or an API connection. Um, so that you aren't having to be the liaison, the go-between. And so then you can kind of build your tech stack as they call it. Um, you can build that, but you want to start with your CRM. And now I have a philosophy. I'll just like put it out there. I think like let's think about our like truly. I think building a tech stack. Like let's build, find a source of truth, find your CRM, and then build on it. Find the tools that work really well, but also that integrate. And I think that there's some platforms that offer a lot of different options that like maybe it's a really good CRM and has really good fundraising pages, but maybe the email marketing is a little less robust. Um, find an email marketing platform um, that integrates with that. Uh, so find the best tool for what you are trying to do, but also have your source of truth, which is your CRM, and then layer different tools on that make the most sense for your organization.
Yeah, that's good. And I think when I think of automation, I think the single source of truth is where your automation should live. So then it can push out to other pieces. Is that how you look at it? Or yeah,
Yeah, it's like a kind of if you I don't know, you can kind of think of it like maybe as a funnel, like at the top we've got all the different ways that maybe donations come into your organization. Okay, so we're funneling all of that into your CRM. Then from your CRM, then that information, like that's your source of truth. So then it can go out to your, your email marketing platform or to your, wherever else you need data to go. So yeah.
jumping over to an earlier piece that we were talking about, which is freeing up time. When I think of that, it's so often the admin tasks. It's things like what we just talked about, duplicate entries into multiple systems, or it's manually sending 50 emails when it could be automated. But I'm curious to know, is there a manual task that you see fundraisers hold on to that could be automated that they feel like they shouldn't automate or they don't think can be automated, and that would free up a lot of their time or their resources, mental load?
So I have two of them, and it's thank you notes.
Hmm.
So one of my favorite automations is when a donor gives, a draft email is sent to your draft inbox with a quick, like a very personal, like meaning, okay, when you send like some of your emails via like your email marketing platform, like they can be a little more polished, right? This one is an email that truly sounds like you of like, oh my gosh, I just saw your gift come in. Thank you so much. 15 exclamation marks. That's how I would write it. Um, but what automation does is that gift comes in, it creates that draft email for you with the donor's um, personalized their first name. It's got their email already attached to it. And then you can just like quickly send um, that draft email out to the donor, like, because speed matters, right? Like speed is important. We live in a instant gratification world. And so a donor gives, you got to meet the moment. You got to like quickly be like, I saw your gift. It's great. Thank you so much. You got to make sure that they feel that love super quick. And so by setting up an automation like that, you can, you know, if you gave to my organization, Rob, I could be like, Rob, it was so awesome to be on the podcast this morning. Just saw your gift come through. Thank you so much. Like, so it's coming into your draft, so you can still edit it to make it like, or maybe, you go by Robbie instead of Rob, and I know that, so I can say that. Um, you can make those little tweaks, but that's one of my favorites. And then also, there's lots of cool platforms that you can do handwritten thank you notes. And I think for me, I always had really good intentions as a fundraiser, like really good. You know what? I just bought all these cards. You know what's going to happen to all of these cards? They're going to sit here because I have great intentions and I can't find a damn stamp. So I'm not going to get them out. So, you know, some people are better than others. But like using, like, for me, like a handwritten, like pla- technology platform that can like write a thank you note for me. Hell yeah. Because you know what? Somebody's actually going to get that thank you card.
I love that. I think the personalized, like the draft email, so you can personalize it for your example with the podcast is such a great example of this just happened, so it wouldn't be in an automated thank you, and they can send it out. I love that. That's a fantastic idea.
And you can do it for all sorts of things. Like, I just created, I'm calling it like a bless and release. So like if you have a monthly donor and say they've been giving and then they stop giving. So you identify that, like, the automation knows that this recurring donor has stopped giving, and you send like a bless and release, like, thank you so much for all that you have done over these years being a recurring donor. I thank you for, you know, your support. I look forward to seeing how you take, I don't know, take your gift and, um, be so generous with another organization. Like, we spend so much time acquiring these donors, and then like somebody leaves, and like maybe they leave because their financial situation has changed, or like whatever the reason is, but like, let's have a positive outgoing too. Like, let's not just be like, oh, they quit. See ya. Never going to talk to you again. No, like send a sweet little note. And so
Love that. Yeah, 100%. I think the donor journey identification and building out systems around those are so important. Um, Another topic that I wanted to cover and get your viewpoint on is turnover in the fundraising space is high. I mean, one statistic is 18 months is the average somebody will stay in a fundraising role. That leads to knowledge loss whenever somebody leaves an organization. So when I think of systems, I think of ways that can help mitigate that. But what's something a nonprofit can do from your perspective to help mitigate knowledge loss that could be automated or systems built around it? Have you dealt with that before?
yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I think we overcomplicate this idea of like creating SOPs, and then they become like this massive, like, I think they're important for sure. But we like we build them up into this, like, they have to be this like huge formal document and all of this. I don't know, record a couple of looms and stick them in a Google Doc. Be
Yeah.
like, the next time you do something, just like, hey, when a new donor comes in, this is typically what I do. Because I don't know, like the steps. I don't know, there's tutorial guides, like the tech you can figure out. It's more of like the knowledge base of like the like, here's how I think about this, or here's how I would approach this situation, that like a new person, coming in as a funder, like, might not know, like, hey, here's a quirky thing about uh, you know, uh, our sector, or Like when I worked in animal welfare, if you're a dog person, you're a dog person. But if you are a cat person, you are a cat person. Like dog people might also be cat people, but I feel like cat people are very much cat people. And so don't send an appeal for dogs to the cat people. But you got an appeal campaign for cats? Man, those cat people are gonna be all over it. You wouldn't know that unless you're really in this, and so for a fundraiser coming in, like, you gotta know that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but, like, record some Loom videos, help people understand, like, how you're thinking about things, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little too, like, loosey-goosey on that.
No, I don't think there is any one answer for that. It's more of I think the Loom videos is a great example. It's just practicing like getting it down on paper or getting it recorded or whatever it is, getting it into the notes of the donor record if it's really specific. But it's just that practice of not letting important knowledge live in your brain. And then if you leave, or in your fundraiser's brain, if it's not you and then they leave, like how are you actively bringing that into your day-to-day, or at least your a monthly cadence of, all right, what are our systems? What do we need to get down on paper? What do we need to record?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And in a way that somebody who can like pick it up, right? Like sometimes we do create these like massive and I am like as guilty as the next person on this, like this massive SOP that like the next person's like, "You're never reading this
Right.
ever."
Yep.
Like so then like I don't know, throwing it in a chat GPT and be like, distill this down to like the 3 tiny bullets that I need to know.
Yep. I'm guilty of checklists. I was talking to a former employee of mine, and she was telling me how her first day I gave her 3 checklists to go through for onboarding, and it was a little too much. So we all have our guilt. All right. I always end with asking for a tactical takeaway. So, Rachel, what is one thing that you think every fundraiser should do today that you believe matters most?
I mean, start small. I would say like build your system before you build your automation. So what I mean by that is like before like creating the draft thank you note automation, super fun. So awesome. But where does that fit in your stewardship journey? And talking about like let's not overcomplicate things, like pull out a Google Doc, pull out a post-it note. What are like the 3, 4, 5 things that you want a new donor to get? Like what touch points do you want them to have? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Great. Does that draft note fit in there? Great. Automate that. But like build the system before you do the automation. Um that's like and checklists, love them. Overcomplicating things, also super good at that. Pull out a post-it note. Your stewardship plan does not need to be any bigger than a post-it note. Like, what are the 5 things that you want every donor to get? Okay, go. Start there.
That's great. I love that starting point. Rachel, thank you so much for giving freely of your expertise and advice
Yeah.
today. It's
Do
been
you
fantastic.
have a favorite automation? Like, I didn't get to ask you any questions. Do you have a favorite one? I
Are
know
you
I saw.
becoming the interviewee here? Whose
Well,
podcast
let's
is this?
turn the tables here.
No, that's a great question. I'm a big fan of system-wide automation. In what I mean by that is you can have email drips where you segment and dump, a segment of your donors into an email list and they get a drip. But what does it look like to have a donor journey of saying, all right, one of the ones you talked about earlier is they're lapsed. You send that
Yeah,
first email, and then you also get a note to a task to give them a call, and then you also have it update a badge on them that says it's lapsed. Like system-wide automation is so huge to keep those admin tasks off your plate. That's my opinion.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Oh, that's good.
Well, thank you so much for joining today, Rachel. For those that are listening, I hope that this conversation encourages you to not only simplify, but to focus your systems and your automations and lean into what I call the ruthless elimination of more. If you're curious about how DonorDock can help you in all of this with finding clarity and building a strong donor base and automating, you can visit us at DonorDock.com. We will see you next week.